So your dream of becoming an airline pilot has been put on hold because of a deferred medical. Well, in this video, we're going to go over what a deferred medical is and what you can do to help move forward in your career. My name is Carl Valeri, and I'll be your host today. I have over 20 years of experience helping pilots navigate challenges both medically and also legally in their backgrounds. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, but I've actually been able to help a lot of folks and get them to the right doctors and lawyers to help them move forward in their careers. You can find out more about our coaching services at aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching. So let's talk a little bit about the deferred medical and what's the reality of a deferred medical. There is one thing I want to say though first. First of all, this. You're not alone, okay? You have help, and there's people out there that want to help you. Obviously, there's lots of people out there on YouTube. There's lots of people on the internet that really want to help you, but there's tons of resources out there. And we're going to talk about those resources and have links below to help you to actually navigate this. So before you get your medical, say you haven't actually gotten your medical yet, that's the time you want to start this process, and you want to actually see if you're going to have a deferred medical by going through the actual requirements for your medical. If you don't know, there's a lot of things you need to do, and one of the things you need to do is consult with an aviation medical examiner. But let's say you did go get your medical, and now it's deferred. Well, and it really is a devastating blow to your ego and your career. But remember this, that again, you may be able to get your medical back, and you probably will. For most people, that happens. But even if that doesn't happen, we're going to give you a couple other ideas as far as things you can do in moving forward in a career in aviation. It doesn't necessarily have to do with flying airplanes, so just remember that. So let's talk a little bit about a deferral. First of all, when you go to the aviation medical examiner, three things can happen. You get approved, you get denied, but most likely you're going to get deferred. And there's a worksheet that the aviation medical examiner has where they work through all these different items to see if they can actually issue you a medical based on certain circumstances. So what do they call that? It's called a CACI worksheet, and those are conditions AMEs can issue. And for those of you new to this, an aviation medical examiner is designated by the FAA to actually perform a medical exam. If they can't determine whether they can actually issue you a medical, many times they will defer it or have to defer it to the FAA in Oklahoma City. Remember this is a process, and it can be a very difficult process sometimes to actually go through the aviation medical examining branch over in Oklahoma City. So the conditions where the aviation medical examiner can issue are out there on the internet, and I have a link on the FAA.gov. Just look up your condition. You can go to FAA.gov, look up your condition. A lot of times you'll see it pop up. So say you have high blood pressure. Here's a good common one. And you want to figure out if you're going to be able to actually get a medical. Well, you can bring up what's called the CACI, look through it. So now you have knowledge before you go into that actual medical there. So again, this can be a stressful process, and it's very complex, but we need to understand this process, okay, and understanding how this works here. So there's a couple things steps you really need to take before you actually move forward in this whole getting your medical. So the FAA, if you do have a deferral and your FAA medical examiner defers your medical, or say the FAA decides after seeing your medical, that say your aviation medical examiner did issue it, but the FAA may issue a letter outlining the reasons there is a deferral. Usually your examiner will know that's a deferral, but every so often that doesn't happen. But you'll need to follow those instructions on the deferral. It helps to have that sheet from their website. So follow those instructions closely and go out and actually figure out what you need to do for that deferral. Maybe it's getting some medication and then monitoring that how you are on that medication, and then seeing that within, say, 7 days, everything's fine. Okay, now we can issue your medical. You go to your medical examiner and they issue that. So those are the things that you need to do. So one of the things you after we have all this information, what you need to do is actually apply for that medical, and that'll be after actually getting all that information. So you can reapply for that medical, but there's this process that we go through to get to that point. And one of the people that I really highly suggest using is a good aviation medical examiner that works a lot with airline pilots and professional pilots, because they understand the deferral process, and they understand that aviation medicine is evolving. So there's certain things that they can issue, and they can understand better by actually following what's coming out in their correspondence with the FAA as far as what they can do to issue what's called the CACI and other things. But there are some services out there that we recommend other than our coaching. And again, with the coaching, we help you navigate this process, not only on helping you get your medical back, but also helping you to move forward, how to craft that actual message to that employer as to why you lost your medical, why it was deferred, if that happened, if that comes up in a conversation. The company that we recommend is AMEs, Aviation Medical Advisory Services. I've used them before in the past, and I think they're terrific. There's other ones that are out there. We do have links out there on the website, aviationcareerspodcast.com/resources, and you can check those out. But depending on your specific circumstances, you may actually wind up getting a waiver from the FAA, and getting or maybe getting a special issuance, or possibly a different career path. It all depends, and there's many different alternate aviation career paths, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But also remember, look at some of the past episodes. We talk about many things out there. So again, what is a special issuance and all these different things, and that special issuance from the FAA, it's time limited, and it's an issuance of your medical, and it's for a time frame, and then you reapply, and you may actually have that special issuance taken away. I'm going fairly fast over that because this is what I want you to do. I want you to actually talk to your consultant, aviation medical consultant, to actually understand how to get through this process. But let's talk about this. Remember, a deferred medical doesn't necessarily mean the end of your aviation dreams. There's besides the fact that you'll probably get your medical back, and obviously through these consulting services, you can determine if that's going to happen. But there's other very rewarding careers in aviation that don't require a first-class medical. The reason we're talking about this, too, is remember, when you go to a big school, a 141 school, a lot of times they require you to have your first-class medical. At many of the college programs, remember that a good 10 and even 30%, depending on the school you talk to, their medicals are actually deferred because of medications that they were taking, maybe as a child, that actually they can't take to get their first-class medical. So therefore, it's deferred, and they have to go through that process. So we've talked about this, in our past episodes, but just remember that we're going to help you get through that process. But let's talk a little bit about the deferral, what you needed to do, but also let's talk about some alternative careers. As far as the deferral process, work with your aviation medical examiner, the consultant, and then move forward with all the paperwork. It could take months, by the way. I've been through this process, and I understand it, and I understand what you're going through. And you're sitting there, and in your mind, you're saying to yourself, gosh, what if I can't do this? What else can I do? Just remember, there's other things that you can do in a career in aviation that are actually flying, but there's some that are non-flying if you can't get a medical. So let's talk about some of those. And there's one big one that's very similar to flying as a simulator instructor. Many people that are unable to get their medical, they go out and they actually instruct in simulators that allow them to help people get their actual ratings in, say, a jet, or maybe a rating in, or get their CTP, ATP, whatever it may be. There's so many cool things that you can do with that ability to actually teach. And you can also teach without a medical. Say you're not going to be able to get a first-class medical. There's other avenues you can go if that's the career path you want to go, is teaching. Say you want to do the light sport. Say you want to actually, and look into all these different certifications, using basic med to get your medical, whatever it may be. But the light sport, you can be a light sport instructor. You can also go into things like management. You can get a degree in aviation management, understanding that there's people that actually fix things at the airport and also on the airplanes. Aviation maintenance technician. You can actually look into those. They're terrific. Some of those jobs, like trying to figure out what you're going to do as far as revenue is concerned, pricing, marketing. There's some really cool things in aviation. This world of aviation is really cool. If I was to lose my medical, would I stay in this aviation? Of course I would. It's so much fun. And that's the thing. You meet some really cool people. And then the other avenues, working at the airport. I'm at an airport here. I'm in what's called an FBO. You can actually work at an FBO. You can work in management at FBO. Some of these careers can actually be incredibly lucrative. But the most important thing during this whole process is you need to stay positive and you need to stay motivated. I've worked with a lot of folks that really know that they probably won't be able to get their medical back. There's certain things, give you an example, there's certain things where you can get deferred, and that deferral could take 5 years. Well, during that 5 years, you need to do something. And that's why a lot of times you'll see on the internet people telling you, hey, get a degree, but get it in something that you could actually use outside of aviation or outside of flying airplanes. It might be inside aviation, but not flying airplanes. A good example is accounting, right? You can do that. You can also get into maintenance management. There's many different jobs out there that have nothing to do with flying the plane, but everything to do with aviation. And look at becoming a dispatcher, those type of things. The other thing that I highly suggest is get together with other consultants. Get together, get a mentor that helps you through this process. Talk to people that have had the similar problems. That's what we do in our mentorship program, and we help people through that. aviationcareerspodcast.com/coaching and our mentorship. Click on our mentorship program. We have other people that's navigating this process that have actually gotten through this, and I really think that you can do it. If your medical has been deferred, it's not the end of the world. Remember, it's just a deferral. Connect with other people on Facebook. There's Facebook pages for people that have diabetes and have been able to get their medical. There's people with all different conditions that, going through this process, they've been able to encourage people like yourself that have a deferred medical. If you know somebody has a deferred medical, tell them to take a look at this video. This has been a bit of an overview and some specifics, but the more research you can do, the more you realize that, you can get your medical back. And there's certain things you might look at the FAA's website and say, well, that's kind of silly that I have to get a deferral because of that. But it is what it is, and you have to go through the process. But at least you have that knowledge. You are armed with that knowledge. And remember that your passion for aviation, it really drives you forward in life, and it doesn't have to end just because you have a deferred medical. And your aviation career doesn't have to end just because you have a deferred medical. You can go into many different career fields. There's people that do so much in the aviation field other than the pilots. You go to an airline and you see like 5,000 pilots. You probably have 25,000 total employees. Those people are working in many different fields within aviation. So just remember that you can still be involved in aviation even if you don't fly airplanes. There's many job opportunities out there. And remember, a deferral doesn't mean you can't fly. You still will probably get it, just from, statistically, probably get your medical back. And if not, there's many other avenues you can go. That's why it's always good to have plan B. We're pilots, we always have plan B. So do me a favor. After this video, if you know somebody that's had a deferred medical, make sure you tell them to take a look at this video and be encouraged. If they are really discouraged and they want to hear some really positive, motivational talk from other people that have gone through this process, tell them to check out our mentorship program. And I think that'll really help them. But the most important thing you can do for me is take one step every single day to move forward in your career and in your life. And I know you will get to your destination faster than you think. You may have to take some turns along the way. You may have to go in a different direction possibly, but you will get to that goal of having that dream job in aviation sooner than you think. Well, we'll talk to you next episode. Safe flying out there.